This is Better Minecraft, a mod pack that adds tons of new features such as biomes, structures, dimensions, dragons, boss fights, and so much more, turning vanilla Minecraft into an entirely whole new experience. Hello everybody, my name is Bunny. Today marks my attempt at 100 days of Better Minecraft. I will be dividing this into a Let's Play series with each episode including 10 days, and when I reach 100 days, I'll conclude the series with a full 100-day movie. Come with me on my adventure. I spawn on a mountain, and in the distance I spot a pirate ship and a floating island. However, I need to find my way off this rocky place. I make my way towards the ledges, and boy am I high up in the sky. After running around these edges for a bit, I was able to find a pond and decided to take a leap of faith. Phew, that was a close one. I take this time to run around the mountain for a little bit, and eventually I did make my way towards the structure. However, upon further inspection, there was a cheeky little bear guarding it. Luckily, I was able to sneak past it and start combining some wood. A chest! Unfortunately, my little arms couldn't break the stone, so I decided to break the chest. I also found a giant tree that was literally right next to me this entire time. Using the wood I gathered, I made a crafting table and some wooden tools. I also decided to collect this new wood type. These logs create a really beautiful white plank. I finished gathering the rest of the wood and got some cobblestone from the mountains. I used a cobblestone to get a better pickaxe, and I found a chest. However, the chest was low-key kinda bad. I picked up some poppies nearby, which are honestly adorable. I also killed a flying fish and ate the corpse. While organizing my inventory, the bear suddenly attacked me. Don't attack me. Oh, it's attacking me. Okay. Fortunately, I was able to get away. I also found the sea creature. Hi. Oh, that hurts. Oh, that hurts. Ouch. Oh my god, what the heck? Anyways, I got some coal and I started to make my way in a random direction. Along the way, I also collected some really pretty flowers and some cherry wood. I made myself another set of tools since the last one broke. Unfortunately, it was getting dark and I was getting scared. In the distance, I saw light and my first instinct was to run towards it. At the light, there seemed to be a sign that said 2,000 blocks in a random direction. Obviously, this must be a sign, so I started running. I killed some sheep on the way for food, but it was getting really dark, so I chickened out and ran back. I then encountered a creeper and struggled to kill this creeper. Anyways, with the wool I got from killing the sheep, I went on my way to start making a bed. And that concludes day 1. When I woke up on the next morning, I decided to kill some cows for some more food. Unfortunately, my morning was not peaceful. Oh! Oh my gosh! Oh! Fortunately, I did make it away safely on half a heart, but I desperately needed some food. So I made a furnace out of a mountain and finally made my first steak. I finished cooking the rest of the food and then I decided to keep on moving. back in the direction we go. I also decided to pick up some flowers on the way. Surely there would be something good in this direction, right? After all the stuff I just went through. Luckily, I found a house in the distance and started making my way towards it. A nice, big 2-story house. This is officially my base. For some reason, it didn't have a large amount of beds, which was kind of weird, but whatevers. I started cleaning up the house a little bit, getting rid of the cobwebs in the attic, and getting rid of the stuff that I didn't need. I also added some furniture of my own and started sprucing up the place a little bit. I added my furnaces and made a kitchen. I also lit up the place a little bit with some lanterns and it was really cute. I soon began to realize it was dark outside, so I went to bed. I woke up the next morning and found out I can equip a lantern on my belt. I cooked up some more food and decided to go explore the area a little bit more. While exploring, I did have an encounter with some birds. Tiki Mouse was on. Oh wait, what the? Oh, what the heck? Oh, no. Safe to say they were not friendly. They chased me all the way out to this random hut. Thankfully, I did manage to get away with only a few minor injuries. But instead of going back to where they came from, they stayed. At this point, I was debating whether or not I should fight them. I tried fighting them off, but you guys, my sword skills are absolutely terrible. Eventually, they did leave and I was able to raid this hut and all it has to offer. It had some cutting boards, food, an axe, and a bunch of item frames. After my gathering session, I went back to my house and began organizing. I made a few more chests and I placed them down. At this point, it was nighttime, so I went to bed. I woke up the next morning energized and ready to explore. Off I went in a random direction to who knows where. I murdered some cows on the way, but then I stumbled across something I wish I never had. Oh my god. What the heck is that? Oh no, I think it spotted me. With my amazing observing skills, I observed that it seemed to be some type of boss. I guess you could say the leader of those birds. I hopped into this forest and collected some wood, some willow logs that gave off some greenish tint. I also spotted a crocodile. Just around the corner, I found a pond with some extremely large catfish. I mean, just look at how derpy it is. Anyways, I decided to kill it. Each time the fish were hit, they made an extremely cute face. I went to even more ponds, and I killed even more catfish. And even more. Safe to say, I took many lives of catfish that day. And many cows. At this point, I realized I was lost. I had no idea where my house was. I picked a random direction and I started running towards it, past the birds and past the mountain. However, it was getting dark and I was starving. And soon enough, I wasn't able to see where I was going, the only light leading me being my little belt lamp. I had to eat some of the raw catfish as well. I would not recommend. Seriously, where is my home? It is extremely dark outside. Eventually, I was able to find some light, and there it was in the distance, my home. However, on the way, I was getting ambushed. Luckily, I made it inside and I went straight to bed. On the next day, I woke up, cooked some food, ate some food, and cooked the rest of the raw fish. I also spent this time organizing my chest and the barrels inside the kitchen. I also decorated the kitchen a little bit by placing down a cutting board and cutting up some cabbage and some pork chop. Deliciously enough, it turned into bacon. I then soon began to realize that I haven't gone mining at all, and I have absolutely no armor, no iron, no nothing. So I hopped into a nearby cave and started gathering. However, that cave sucked. On my way back home, I accidentally fell into a ravine. While exploring, I managed to find a bigger cave. I tried fighting off the zombies as best as I could, but they bombarded me. It was way too many and a creeper blew up in my face. Stupid baby zombie. I started collecting some iron in the cave and made my way down. Upon further inspection, I found a goblin named Cleo. While looking at his trades, I found out that he can double my iron. However, that didn't last very long as a creeper blew both of us up. I went to bed grieving that night. When I woke up the next day, I finally made a waypoint for my house so I wouldn't lose my way again. I then went out to go find my dead body and retrieve my items. And of course, there was no Cleo to be seen. Rest in peace, Cleo. You will be missed. I then spent the rest of my time mining ores and fighting off mobs. Unfortunately, another skeleton appeared out of nowhere and I died again. These last few days have not been good for me. I mined the rest of the ores and I quickly got my way out of that cave. That cave is not safe. I went home and I quickly smelted up my ores. I then organized my chest some more and put away my items. And for some reason, I misclicked and I made an iron pressure plate by accident. I'm not really sure what to do with that. But I was able to make myself some iron armor and gear up. Finally. I then proceeded to struggle with making a shield. Somebody please send help. I then went to bed, finally in some clothing. The very next day, I decided to clean up the house a little bit more and get rid of some stuff that I didn't really like. I also upgraded my pickaxe and tools to iron. And got rid of that stupid pressure plate. I also killed the pigs that were in my backyard and turned them into some bacon. I wanted wanted to remodel the house and figured there wasn't really a need for this. I placed down some blocks and I started building it up. Eventually, I did run out of planks, so I had to go make some more. I planted some saplings and tried growing it with some bone meal. Huzzah! It worked! And chopping it down was easier than cutting a piece of cake. I wanted some more wood, so I tried growing it again. However, I did make a mistake and it didn't grow. I made myself some planks and then started remodeling the house, getting rid of some of the logs that were at the sides. I filled them in with some planks. I then fixed up the front of the house. I made some walls. Made some window holes. And I went outside to take a look at how it was looking. I then went out onto the roof of my house by taking a chunk of the wall and then replacing it. I mined up the rest of the logs and replaced them with planks. I wanted to give some texture and depth to the house, so I added some pillars around the outside. It was starting to look pretty good. However, it was getting a little bit dark, so I had to mine back into my house and go to bed. I'm pretty satisfied with my work today. I woke up refreshed the next morning and tried to continue finishing up the house. Alright, you guys, this looks like dog proof. I'm just gonna get rid of that real quick. I finished up touching up the house a little bit, and I also fixed some of the windows. And of course, you can't forget about the other side. I made a couple more trapdoors and then I placed them down. I made another axe because my last axe is towards the end of its life. I also rearranged the stuff inside of the kitchen, moving some stoves around. I also took the time to fill them up with coal. I also fixed up the new room. Using the extra trapdoors I had, I placed the extra on top of the entrance. I also came to realize I was missing a bunch of windows. And unfortunately, I did not have any sand. I fixed up the house and spruced it up a little bit. At this point, the sun was setting, so I took my leave straight to my bed, feeling pretty satisfied. I woke up the very next morning and decided I wanted to make this room my chest room. I made a couple white chests and I placed them in the room. I then began to make a shovel and make my way towards the lake outside my house. I gathered up a little bit of sand and then I started making my way back. However, I happened to meet some resistance on the way. Someone please tell me why these birds keep harassing me. Luckily, while their backs were turned, I managed to sneak into the house very swiftly and quietly. I put the sand to smell and started to put away my stuff from my trip. However, the birds seemed to have spot me. These rascals started coming up to my house and trying to break in. I also began to realize that I had no windows. So I made the brave decision of fighting them head on. With each hit, more and more just kept on coming. Also, they can jump. And this fellow wasn't even a part of the fight. Fortunately, with my awesome sword skills, I was able to kill some of them off. I also decided to go kill out the rest of the others as well. However, these turkeys apparently know how to block. Unfortunately, that was probably the leader and they called reinforcements. In the safety of my home, I was able to kill part of them and then kill the rest of them that were in the water. At this point, it was starting to get dark, so I went into the safety of my house and went to bed, safe and sound. On day 9, I went into the caves to collect some minerals and fill up on some iron. On my way out of the caves, I was then harassed by a bunch of birds once again. This must be some sort of sign. I finished up decorating the house by placing the last bits of trapdoors. I also moved my chest from upstairs to downstairs and fixed the hole in my wall. I finally took the glass out of the furnace and started placing down the blocks for my windows. Just to realize that all the other windows were made of glass panes. They should be called glass pane because they're such a pain in my ass. Luckily, this mod does make it so if you break any glass, it will turn into some shards. The shards then can be turned into normal glass. Finally, I made myself some glass planes and then I finally placed them in my windows. I then made some torches and used the iron in my chest to make some lanterns. I also wanted to add a patio to my house, so I began construction. I got myself the blocks I needed. And oh my god, those birds again. Anyways, I began to work on the outside of the patio. I placed a couple blocks down, measuring how big I really wanted the patio to be. I also added some stairs leading up and into my house. I added some fences around so no one would fall off, and I also fixed up the entrance. I wanted to make some sort of cool entryway. However, it sort of just blended into everything, so I got rid of it. I took a look inside my chest and I found these gray willow logs. I turned them into planks and then I turned them into fences. I wanted to replace these fences with the new fences. I also replaced the stairs on top. Safe to say, I went to bed crying that night. I woke up the very next morning and realized I have no room. So I got some stuff from my chest and I made myself a backpack. I geared up, placing some wood and sticks in there and as well as some of my items. I then set out on an adventure. While exploring, I found some tomato seeds outside my house and gathered as much as I could. Earlier, I had found a structure on the map, so I had marked it. Upon arrival, there were some pillagers protecting the structure. I easily took them out. Whatever was inside is hidden away behind some iron doors. I opened the doors, and upon further inspection, there were even more pillagers. Unfortunately, I didn't make it. On my way back to the structure, I was able to kill off the rest of the pillagers and retrieve my stuff. Inside the structure were a couple of chests with some smithing techniques and food. I also opened up the jail cell. Inside were two villagers named Jessica and Agueda. I decided to look on the map a little bit and try to find a place that I can travel to. While climbing up and over the mountains, I came across a suspicious cave. I was met with a ladder and decided to explore. On the way down, it seemed to be some sort of mine shaft. Bowie? Oh my god. Oh my god! After that jump scare, I decided to go explore a little more. Luckily for me, I was able to find some amethyst. In a fit of rage, I decided to collect as much amethyst as I could. On my way out of the gemstone, I happened to be met with Keith, a goblin willing to trade 1 iron ore for 2 iron ingots. If you ask me, that is a steal. I decided to collect some more iron and get as much iron ingots as I could before exploring back into the caves. While exploring, I found a minecart. A dragon egg. And there was another chest next to it too. On my way back to the entrance, I realized there was more to this cave than I originally thought. On my way down, I was able to find some diamonds. My first diamonds. On further exploration, there were a bunch of urns with skulls and other worldly stuff. Upon looking at the map, there happened to be a big room with a bunch of mobs in it. There's also a bunch of these little guys around. Every time I got close to them, they just happened to disappear and reappear somewhere else. I later found out that it's actually hide and seek, and they give you a bundle for each time you complete. While exploring the caves, I also found that there were some furnaces around the map. Each furnace containing some coal and as well as some barrels next to them. My backpack was getting pretty heavy. Upon more exploration, there were also even more levels. I also happened to find more friends, as well as some diamonds. These little guys happen to teleport pretty close to each other, so I won't have to look far. Unfortunately, I did chicken out and I did not want to go any further. Built my way back up to the surface and onto the ladder. At this point, it was very outside. And there were a bunch of mobs. By the time I even left the premises, the sun was already coming up. I did manage to make it to my house in time and sleep. Thank you so much, everybody, for watching. I hope you guys enjoy. Bye-bye.